So I have a thought on music because the music is on and I love it. Last night, it is difficult. I'm laughing at myself, I admit it. Last night, for about 2.5 hours, I was transported in my own home to my version of paradise. My audio guys were over, and I was listening to some new equipment to make my already incredible sounding audio system, believe it or not, measurably, audibly better than it was. And you heard it. You got tears.
It was really
Billy Joel,
spectacular.
Piano Man.
Good memory.
Oh, not good memory. I knew the song, but you made me fall in love with it. And I now use it as one of my samplers to test out my
That's
system.
so great.
Oh, it is.
Wow.
If you heard it now, there is no question it would be almost impossible to hear him live and hear him as well as you would hear him.
I have heard him live, and I was in the third or fourth row, and your sound system is better.
Yes.
It was actually
Yes.
kind of I mean, don't get me wrong. It was an amazing
No,
concert. I was
live is
thrilled
always something.
to be
Yeah,
there.
right.
But it's kind of abrasive when you're that close. When you're far away, you can't hear as well. But when you're right there,
Yeah.
It's
well, this is right there and not
ear-shattering.
abrasive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of thoughts about it because I always think from outside of me about, I'm looking down at me my whole life. I'm observing Dennis. It's fun. I enjoy observing me. And not because of narcissism, but because that's how I learn about humanity. So this is really, this will interest, I think, a lot of people who know me for years. That I always believed that in my essence, I am, quote unquote, every man. I believe I have gifts. I mean, it's not believe. I know that I have gifts. I
Right.
acknowledge that. I've had a very special life. All of that I know. I don't deny it. I don't have false humility. None of that nonsense. But I am just like in my nature. I have the same human nature, not the same individual nature, but human nature that others have. So therefore, I was able to understand humanity by understanding Dennis. Mm-hmm. That was a key, the key to unlocking my understanding, especially of men. I'm a man. This guy's a man. He may be an a-hole. He may be a murderer, but he's a man and I'm a man, and we come from the same stock. So if I knew me, I knew a lot about him. Isn't that interesting?
I love that. I mean, I do the same thing with myself, but a lot of people, as we know, are not honest with their natures, both their individual natures and their human nature. But anyway, you were saying that you
So
with the
okay,
audio
so
equipment, you were
yes, so
looking down.
what did that have to do with all of this? So I was looking down on myself last night and thinking, this guy really enjoys life.
I know you told me, I have to share it with the viewers. And actually, the other day I was thinking about whether this was a joke or whether you would actually like this to happen. Dennis said to me once, my tombstone will have a engraving that says he had a great time. And sorry to sound a little bit depressing, but I do think about your death a fair amount. I don't obsess over it, but it's something that comes to mind
right.
because you're such a huge part of my life, and it's going to be really, really difficult, to put it lightly, when you're gone, as I know it will be for many people, many of whom have not met you. But I was thinking about your death the other day, and I was thinking I should really ask him. Hopefully I have many more years to talk through
Right.
things with you, but I should really ask him before he goes. Were you serious about that tombstone thing?
I that's very interesting.
It could be kind of fun.
What was it? He had a great time.
That's what you told me.
If that were written there, I would be totally. I would die in peace. But
I think you die in peace anyway. But
yeah, that's the hope. By the way, just for those who share your concern, if I die at the age like my dad did, I have 21 more years. That's not a little time, and he was healthy. Right. And there's no guarantee I could get a tumor tomorrow. But that's true for you. That's true for every living person. That is why, by the way, it is a gift of God or nature that we don't know the day we'll die.
Yes, so true.
Even, let's say you
Absolutely.
knew, I won't die till my 100th birthday. Let's say, so what? So you would have, all of your life would be a countdown. It is a gift that we don't know when we'll die.
Mm-hmm. And it's a gift that we don't know whether or not we'll go to heaven or whether or not there's a God. I actually think it is a gift because if there were certainty, it wouldn't make life as interesting. I know I become better in the pursuit of trying to figure things out cosmically.
That's where you and I are real similar dispositions. If there a way, so he asks, Sean does, if there a way to know what? If there's a God? Oh, the day
no,
would not.
I wouldn't want to know.
I would never want to know that.
No.
That's why, by the way, I can't think, which is very sad for me to say to you, just as what you just said about death was sad for you to say to me. The last thing I would want to do is enter a time machine and go into the future. I can't believe I would come back happier.
Oh, well,
absolutely. I would. By the way, I
Especially
would love
now.
to go into a time machine and back.
Oh, gosh, me too. Even just
You would like to go
30,
to
40 years
Jane
back.
Eyre's world.
Yeah,
Would you?
I think I would. I just to see, imagine being in Puritan Massachusetts.
Right.
Just to look at it and to see the way that people interacted with each other and see the kinds of structures they had.
If you got to go for one day, the amount you would learn.
Oh my gosh, I know.
About humanity and history. What I would do, I wouldn't go, for example, if I went back in American history, as much as I adore, and I do, these people were God's gift to the world. Franklin and Jefferson and Madison and Washington, I mean, they were giants.
Right.
But if I could go back to that era, I would go to a tavern with the regular folks.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
what are they talking about?
Mm-hmm. And
if you could go back in time and give yourself a message, what would it be?
If I could go back in time and give myself a message, what does that mean, give myself a message?
Advise teenage Dennis.
If I could go back in my time, you mean in my life? Oh, and I could tell teenage Dennis something?
Oh.
That's an interesting question. What would I tell young Dennis that I know now and didn't know then? Whew. I have to think about that. I really, really, really thought starting, I would say at 14, I can almost date it. Do you know that when I was 16, you'll get a kick out of this. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of every week, I would go from Brooklyn, where my parents lived, therefore I lived, to Manhattan. And you have to understand, in New York City, you don't even say I'm going to Manhattan. You say I'm going to the city.
I know.
Because everybody knows that's the city.
Well,
not Brooklyn, not the Bronx, not Queens, not Staten Island.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Don't forget what you're going to say, but I always thought it was so pretentious and self-righteous when I would meet people in college and they, you say, at Harvard, there's 4 things. What's your name? Where are you from? What are you majoring in? And what house are you in? And so, where are you from? People from New York would go, the city. And I'd be like, you know what, a-hole. Sorry.
They really
Yes,
did?
they would. I would go, well, LA is a city too. Minneapolis
yeah, but that
is a
hard.
city.
So now
Seattle's a
you know. Now
city.
you know what I'm saying is accurate.
Yes.
But we who lived in Brooklyn would say it.
And then they say the park. Like my friends
Yes,
in New York, I went to the
that's-
park
that's-
today.
oh.
Right. Like Central Park is the only park.
Oh, that's very funny. That is
me.
true.
Gets me angry.
So I'd go into the city every weeknight, except Friday night because it was the Shabbat and I'd be at home. So at 16, so I would come back like at 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the cars were nearly empty. Sometimes there were never a lot of people. But anyway, so I was sitting like this, my arms to the side, because they're just long. There's no individual seats on the New York subway. So I'm sitting back there, leaning back, and I had teenage angst, a little bit of that, and I remember. And it's amazing that I did it. I don't even take credit for it. It's a gift, really. I said to myself, any a-hole could be unhappy. Unhappy is the easy way out, Dennis. Mm-hmm. And that was when something that doesn't occur to most people at 50, get out of your damn miserable mood and act and be happy. And I've never changed. So I'm only answering his question. I really did have a lot of wisdom at a young age. I don't take any credit for it. I think it's like piano talent. Mm-hmm. You're given it. I take credit for what I've done with the wisdom that I've given to a lot of people, these insights. But I had it at an early age.
What you just said about act happy, I have recently really started to believe in the fake it till you make it mentality. I used to think, well, faking it is faking it.
Yeah, right. It's inauthentic.
It's inauthentic.
Right.
Why would you, and
Right.
we're such pursuers of the truth. But I actually think if you're unhappy, you kind of have, as you say in your book, you have an obligation to kind of fake it, act happy for the benefit of the people around you.
And for your benefit.
Yes.
Because
yes,
till you make it.
It will.
You know where
out.
fake it till you make it comes from?
No.
12-step programs.
Really?
Oh, so
gosh, you are so right that there's more wisdom in AA than
at Harvard.
Well,
you could say it. But
a lot more
and
wisdom in a
Harvard's
lot of
better
other
than Yale.
places.
I mean, Yale is really
Yes.
low. But that is true. And I thank God, was never addicted, so I was never in a program. I knew nothing about it. Mm-hmm. But that's the beauty of having a talk show. That's the beauty over a podcast. Podcasts are great.
Yep.
I've talked with people for 40 years. Who can say that? Mm-hmm. Maybe a therapist could say that, but
they have the same people. You've
that's
spoken with
right.
a variety
Yes.
of people.
And they open up. So I remember people would say stuff like that, fake it till you make it. And whenever I hear wisdom, my immediate response on the air would be, did you make that up or did you learn that? Whenever I hear a real piece of wisdom, which is a great question to ask, because then you know,
right.
Wow, am I talking to a person who comes up with this stuff? Or, just as important, where can I look that
Right.
you got that from? And unbelievably, over time, I was addicted to whatever, gambling, liquor, whatever, alcohol, and I was in a 12-step program. The stuff that they have learned, it's incomparable. So fake it till you make it. So you'll love this. So when I talk about happiness to kids, which is my first choice, not to talk politics, is to talk happiness. Because if I tell them their feelings are not important, their behavior is, I have made a conservative. That's the irony. It's
Yes,
not
you're
even
right.
not even my primary. I want to make them happy, but anyway, there are no happy leftists. So if they really do become happy, then I believe there's a philosophical, political, moral change in the person. But anyway, so I would talk about happiness, and tell them, fake it till you make it, or however I would have put it before I learned that phrase. And the most common question is, well, sir, that's not authentic. That's not acting authentic. So I would say to them, I'll tell you, you're really into acting authentically? I'm just curious. Do you fart in public? That is truly authentic. Correct?
A lot of people do.
No, I don't think so. Thank God. At least maybe not. Really, I thank God, cannot say that
Have you ever been on a
experienced that.
plane?
Yeah, I've been. Have I been on a plane?
It's true.
The question is, have I been in a house? Authentic is body odor. Authentic is bad breath. I mean, that people don't realize we spend our lives in authenticity, not being fake humans, but authentic.
Being clothed to a degree.
That's right.
is-
Nudity is authentic.
Right,
That's
right.
exactly correct.
That's a really good response.
Yes.
Really good.
Oh, I know it is because they have no answer to that.
Right.
What's authentic about deodorant? Right?
What's authentic about abiding by the speed limit if you want to drive over the speed limit? There
Yeah,
are a lot
that's
of ways that we
inauthentic. That's right.
restrain ourselves or
That's
do
right.
things we don't
Yeah.
want to do. So I'll tell you, you may not even know that I did this, but a few months ago, after I graduated from college and I moved back to LA, I think it was when I moved into my apartment, I really wanted to, as corny as it sounds, become more involved in my community because you and I talk a lot about, we talked about it last week on Dennis and Julie, the value and the importance of doing things in a small way. You know, we talked about how the left tells you to go fight racism, fight climate change. You start with fighting yourself, and you start with making, you know, positive differences in your own community. So I wanted to become more involved. And so I decided to go to some AA meetings near my apartment
Why?
because I wanted to get to know more people in my community. I feel like we now.
You never told me this.
I know. I don't know why.
When
I
did
it
you?
wasn't-
When did you do this?
I only did it twice, but this was a few months ago when I moved
few
into
months
my,
ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, it was for a few reasons. I wanted to get to know people
So
around
when
me.
you were at the AA, did they ask you to introduce
Yeah.
yourself?
Oh yeah.
But so why did you say, "Hi, I'm Julie,"
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not addicted, or what did you say?
Yes.
What
I said,
does the non-addicted say?
I said, I'm Julie. I thankfully do not and have not struggled with an addiction, but I have some very close friends and family members who have, and I'm curious to
So that
check
was it.
this out.
Nobody.
They were so nice.
Yeah,
no one
well,
gave me. They were.
I think AA meetings are the nicest
They are
meetings in the
so
country.
welcoming, and they were really touched that someone took an interest,
Oh,
and especially
really?
someone young wanted to
Yeah.
learn. And I said, I have, I understand that there is a lot of wisdom that is conveyed in these meetings, and I want a taste of it, even though I may not be troubled in the same
In that way, yeah.
And so I went twice, and
By the way, you are addicted to reading. I'm not joking.
and to candy.
I think
I am. I have candy every day.
that's interesting. Certainly don't look
Cheese
like you're
puffs.
addicted
I'm addicted
to
to
candy.
cheese puffs. They
Oh,
know.
that's a separate issue. Is she addicted to candy? Do you?
You see the York peppermint patties. I'm
yeah.
always.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
Yeah. It's my vice.
Okay, but
I am addicted to reading. That's true.
don't forget what you
Okay.
were about to say. I'm very curious about what you got at the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a very, to me anyway, an interesting question. My wife, I believe, is addicted to reading, because
She really is.
yes, right. If you, by the way, I'm not sure that I'm not. See, if you took the ability to read away, wouldn't she go into what is the word? Not remission.
Withdrawal.
Yeah, withdrawal. Wouldn't she go into withdrawal in a similar way that somebody deprived of alcohol?
I don't think it would be to the same extent.
Not physically,
obviously.
but she would sort of go out of her mind. And by the way, I think I would too. If you keep your brain alive, and the nutrient is removed, it's a big deal.
I really do think I have become addicted to reading. I've actually gotten better about tempering it a bit in the last few weeks. But me, 3 or 4 months ago, I was totally addicted to it for two reasons. Number one, it takes my mind off of my bad self-talk. And that's
Same
if I
with
may
Sue.
say, it's the
Same
same thing
with
with Sue,
Sue.
and we've talked
That's
about
right.
that.
Yep.
So I can just start reading something, and I'm not, beating myself up. And the second reason is I am so motivated to be the best talk show host that I can be. And also I have this, it's not just professional. I want to learn as much as I can because I think it's so fulfilling that I was like a little crazy about it. I mean, I would wake up and read for 4 hours and then come to work, and then at night read for 2, and I'd highlight and underline, and then I'd type up notes, and then I'd like quiz myself about. So, and it was just this pursuit of learning that I think was a little bit what's pathological. Anyway, so I went to the AA meeting, and they were so nice. And I think also, in addition to wanting to glean the wisdom, wanting to be a community member for all that I talk about the importance of community, I also wanted to just encounter real people, you know, because they are so vulnerable and they're so struggling. And obviously it's not fun to see people struggling, but it's like all the layers are stripped. All the BS is stripped. They don't care about, you know, and they curse and they're loud, and many of them go out and they're smoking their cigarette, but they're real. They're truly just, they've had to strip down to the bare bones and be real people. And so I loved that. And gosh, I'm trying to tell you what I learned. It was just really interesting to hear how people, the moments. You didn't
speak up, did you?
No, I just listened, and I took notes.
I would think so.
I didn't think it was my place. Sometimes I had questions, but I didn't.
Well, they might have appreciated questions.
I did ask some questions, but otherwise I didn't speak up.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
It was really interesting to hear people talk about the moments when they knew that it was too much, because a lot of them said that they knew that they were addicts for a long time, but they thought that they could kind of live a life where it wouldn't impact them, or they could hide it.
Right.
And it was really interesting when they talked about the moments when they knew that they had to quit. And a lot of it was that their relationships with their children changed.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny, not funny. It's interesting that I was blessed. My parents had no pathologies like that. I mean, it wasn't the loving, warm home, but so what? It was stable. It was secure. All of that. And oh man, it happened. It's
Bingo.
A bingo moment. Oh no.
No, it's I love it because we're really relaxed.
Oh yes. So I learned. It is the reason, because it doesn't happen to me on radio.
I know.
So,
or me.
So I'm saying that because what I learned was not from my own experience, and that is, if you grew up with an alcoholic parent, that is a very, very serious problem.
Oh, I can't imagine. It must be. Can I go back for a moment to something that we were talking about earlier?
Yes, just let me think if I wanted to pursue something there for a second. No, you got it. The wisdom. Oh, yes. One quickie. You won't forget, right?
I won't. I wrote it down.
You're speaking of people at AA meetings as real. Mm-hmm. You and I love real. My younger son is now sober 7 years, married, wants a child. He does a conservative podcast. I mean, he's a dream. But it was a very hard time. I'm very open about it. It's fine with him. He was born to a meth addict because I adopted him. My late wife and I adopted him when he was born, the day he was born. And his friends are all recovering addicts. And I love them. Because they're so real. They came from Pennsylvania, where my son lives, to Florida when he got married at my older son's home in Florida. It was one of the I was on a high I don't get on highs. I mean, I'm sort of in a permanent high, but you know what I mean.
Gold dealers are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. What sets these companies apart, and who can you really trust? This is Julie Hartman for AmFed Coin and Bullion, Dennis's choice for buying precious metals. When you buy precious metals, it's imperative that you buy from a trustworthy and transparent dealer that protects your best interests. So many companies use gimmicks to take advantage of inexperienced gold and silver buyers. Be cautious of brokers offering free gold and silver, or brokers that want to sell you overpriced collectible coins, claiming they appreciate more than gold and silver. What about hidden commissions and huge markups? Nick Grovich and his team at AmFed have always had Dennis's back. Nick's been in this industry for over 42 years, and he's established a reputation built on trust, transparency, and fair pricing. If you're interested in buying or selling, call Nick Grovich and his team at AmFed Coin and Bullion, 1-800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com. You are on a permanent high. I feel like you're always on a high.
Well, I am. It's a gift, and I work on it. Both are true. But nevertheless, this was beyond anything. I mean, I was just floating that day. And his friends, I so adore them. You know my story about putting them on the radio?
Yes.
People probably don't know it. Elsie doesn't know it. And that's my standard, whether I say something or not. Elsie, you've really entered my consciousness. I mean, it's pretty clear. Do people know who Elsie is? Or do
We
they think I'm
introduced
talking
her.
to like Mr. Snuffleupagus?
Well, she's our invisible friend.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
mean. It's Mr. Snuffleupagus is
Don't know who that is.
Oh, Mr. Snuffleupagus is what's the name of the giant chicken in Sesame Street?
Big Bird, I don't think he's a chicken.
Big Bird is not a chicken, just a bird? Okay. Big Bird has an invisible friend.
Oh, did I tell you this? Wait, sorry. I know I'm getting sidetracked. I had an imaginary friend when I was little for like a hot second. Guess what his name was?
Dennis.
Dennis. Isn't that eerie? Isn't that crazy? And
Eerie. I'm not blinking.
That's where I feel like, well, I definitely believe God exists for many
Is
reasons.
that a premonition?
But
Wow.
God, I think sprinkles in these fun things like the face on the moon. You look at the way that Mr. Tubbs, your new dog, who I got to admit I'm not a big fan of Mr. Tubbs. Sorry, it's just because he chews my shoes, and he
I think
follows me
that's-
everywhere
I think
and
that's
licks
adorable.
me. Well, are
Keep
your
at it,
shoes
Mr.
being
Tubbs.
chewed? No, mine are. My slippers are being chewed. It's a disgrace. Anyway. Look at pugs. Like, God just makes kind of these absurd looking creatures for our delight. I mentioned the man on the moon, and I think the fact that my imaginary friend's name was Dennis, that was another one of God sprinkling in something fun that will later in life make sense.
That's very touching, actually. It must crack you up.
So tell the story of
Oh.
being on the radio with Aaron's friends.
So,
It's great.
so I was in Pennsylvania to give a speech in Philadelphia area. So I broadcast when I'm on the road. I go to my local station and broadcast. So they're an hour and a half away from Philadelphia, but so what? And I said, "Why don't you come on my show, Aaron? Bring 3 of your buddies. We'll talk about addiction for an hour." So a lot of addicts. It's hard to imagine that more than 1 out of 10 Americans does not either experience it or know someone
Probably
addicted.
more.
No. In other words, 90%, I believe.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think 90% of
yeah.
Americans
Oh,
either
yes.
know someone or
I thought you
or
were
is.
saying 10%.
No.
Way
of course
higher.
not. 10% may not know. Okay. So I knew it would be of general interest. So I had the guys on. They were terrific. The second they announced, okay, hour's done, they all gave each other high fives because they didn't curse for 1 hour.
Sometimes I give
They were
myself
going-
a high five.
They were so proud of themselves. They had actually got an hour without cursing.
Sometimes I do that, but I give myself a
Uh-huh.
high five.
That's right. There's the invisible creature. There's
I never watched
Big
that.
Bird's dentist. Do you know that I watched Sesame Street every day I was at Columbia University in graduate school?
Why?
I thought it was hilarious. This was pre-politicized Sesame Street. And Bert and Ernie, they were a riot. Oscar the Grouch. I mean, I really know Sesame Street from then. I don't know.
I love looking back at non-political just forms of fun. Like, okay,
God.
Sean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to create more work for you. Can you pull up the Frito Bandito commercial? Ay, 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 ay. You know the Frito Bandito? I am the Frito Bandito. It's the Mexican.
Oh, today you'd be arrested.
He was thrown off the air. Or he was a cartoon, and he was kicked off in the 80s because you can't, have
Can't
a
have
Mexican
can't
wear a
have a
sombrero.
Mexican accent.
I know, and it was so
I know.
funny.
It
was hilarious.
That's one of the reasons I really don't like the left is they're not real. They hate the real.
Well said.
It's a
Really
war
well
against the
said.
real.
Yes. Well, literally in every way.
Yes.
In every way, the
Right.
transgender movement, the
They-
defund the police
they
movement.
are children.
It's not
that's
rooted
why,
in reality.
That's why I call leftists children, because they are A, narcissistic, and B, they can't handle life. That's a very big factor in leftism. Fear of reality.
Yes.
When I wrote my 2-part series, it's on my 1,000 columns are all on the internet. I have to live with what I've written in 1,000 columns, aside from books, and I'm proud to, by the way. So about 15 years ago, I wrote a 2-part column when a wife is not in the mood, and it went sort of viral. My thesis was, which I think is about as down to earth, inoffensive as you can get, but in the world of a war on reality, I'll tell you what happened as a result. But my thesis was very simple. You're a happily married woman. You love your husband. He loves you. He treats you well. You're not in the mood to have sex. Nevertheless, don't let your mood be the only determinant. So sometimes, even if you're not in the mood, big deal. I love him. He loves me. And let's go for it, Fred. Okay.
Fred.
So I didn't write Fred. That was it. That was the entirety. Understood that, there are totally times she doesn't feel well. She has a headache. She worked crazy with the kids or at work. We understand. All of that is in there. And that obviously it's her choice. I mean, whether he can't force himself on her, that wasn't even implied. So in I think it was the Daily Kos, big, gigantic left-wing site, at least then. I don't know if it is today. I think it is, but I don't know. They write, Dennis Prager advocates marital rape. This became a meme on the left, that I advocate marital rape. Now, why would they write that? One, of course, because they smear all conservatives. Okay, that's par for the course for the left. But also because they couldn't handle the idea that a man might suggest to a woman, if you're not in the mood to make love, you might want to give it a try if you love him anyway. That is verboten. That is forbidden.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know just how much that pissed off the left, because when I was in college and I started doing Dennis and Julie with you, and even before that, I was on your show one summer weekly. So people knew about my association with you. And out of all of the things you've ever said in your career, that was the thing that was brought up the most to me.
Wow.
That and gay marriage, but more that than gay marriage, interestingly. And women, I mean, it was mostly, actually, I can't remember. I'm sure a man brought it up, but it was mostly women.
Of course.
That was saying, this is a really awful position. And Dennis is advocating that, women force themselves into something that isn't their choice. And you're right. It's really no.
By the way, they're right. I think you should force yourself when it's a good thing. I force myself to do good things all the time.
Right, but as you say, and it's, it's at the end of the day, it's their choice.
Yes,
of
of course.
And you never wrote in there that a man should
No, it's not even implied,
Right.
let alone wrote it. And I don't think that way.
Right.
But in order to lead a good life, you can't only do what you're in the mood to do. Why is that not obvious?
I force myself to work out sometimes.
Well, yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Me
Right.
too. 3
Right.
times a week, it's
Right.
pure force. Mm-hmm. And there are things that I do for the family that I rather be listening to my audio equipment.
Right.
But so what?
Well, you're right that leftism runs away from reality, and they think that they can create a utopia where they're happier. But the further you run away from reality, the worse your life
'cause
gets.
it catches
if
up
you
with
accept reality and strive to, make the best of it, change things when you can, you're just a happier person. I cite this example all the time. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to talk about males' extreme, sexual drive. Maybe if I were designing the world from scratch, I would have designed it, a little tempered down, a little
Right.
less, intense. But I can't deny that that's the reality. And then the more I understand it, the more I see that it's actually not so scary. And the more that
you never said that to me.
Yeah.
But I knew it would happen.
Well,
My forgive me.
No, please.
My task in that arena is to I've used this many times, defang male sexuality in women's eyes, because it is this I get, though I'm not a woman. When you first learn about male sexuality, it has to be scary.
it is. I
There
won't
is
lie.
no
It is.
totally
because
understood.
we are so different
Correct.
in that arena.
That is exactly right. And then you realize it's sort of like when my older brother, I was about 11, and I said, Kenny, I'm really, I get scared at monster movies on TV. So he said, what you should do is watch as many as possible until the monsters
Don't scare you.
don't scare you. And it worked. The same with male sexuality.
Let me tell you part of the reason why it's less scary to me, because I have seen how denying it is actually scarier with hookup culture, which I saw on full display in college, where instead of acknowledging that women and men have different sexual proclivities, they try to run away from that reality, say that women want promiscuous, frivolous, constant sex as much as men, and then women are just giving men exactly what they want with no commitment, and they're often doing it when they don't want to, but they feel like they have
God,
to.
that
I
is
have
so
seen the
ironic.
evil. It is so ironic. I've seen the evil of denying it. It actually exacerbates I don't know if it's a problem, but
Right,
the
yes.
reality that you're trying to run away from.
That's right.
If you just acknowledge that men and women have different sexual proclivities, each sex has to deal
Right. So
with that in a fair way.
so a married man who loves her husband and he treats her beautifully, she should not at any time do what is not natural, which is have sex even though she's not in the mood. But an unmarried woman at college
I know.
should do that.
Constantly do
Yes,
that.
work
Because
against their nature.
It's empowerment. I mean, the whole thing is crazy.
Yes, it is.
Yes, you're right. You're so right that fundamentally leftism is anti-reality based. But even also if you look, I'm not trying to paint all leftists with one broad brush, but most leftists I've met, they care so much about their affect. They care so much about appearing super woke and enlightened and conscious of feelings that it really is inauthentic. In addition to their positions not being rooted in reality.
Well, what
their
is more unreal
personalities.
than men give birth?
Well, exactly. So if you don't mind, I want to go back a little bit. Is that okay?
Totally.
Oh, the Frito Bandito. Absolutely.
Bandito like me. You too. Then you must sing the Bandito song. Let's sing together. You just follow the bouncing Fritos corn chips bag. Ay, 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 ay. I am the Frito Bandito. Hey, I like Fritos corn chips. I love them, I do. I want Fritos corn chips. I'll get them from you. Ay, 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 ay. Oh, I am the Frito Bandito. Give me Fritos corn chips and I'll be your friend. The Frito Bandito you must not offend. Now, boys and girls, you are Frito Banditos too. You sing the Frito Bandito song, and you loco for crunchy Fritos corn chips. That's nice. Munch,
That's
munch,
nice.
munchy, munchy.
What year
Fritos
is that from?
corn chips.
80s, I think. Or no, 70s.
No.
Yeah, I think so.
That late?
Ha ha!
What year? Did he say? Sean, did you say
He just
year?
nodded. So there's another commercial.
Wow, I thought it was like from the 50s. Wow.
There's another commercial where there's this.
By the way, what's wrong with that?
Nothing. It's hilarious. It's
Yes.
fun.
There are no Mexicans who have that type of accent?
Of course.
Well,
I
and
mean-
what is wrong with that?
Well, Will Witt of PragerU did this. I think it's one of the best videos he's ever done, where he put on a sombrero and a mustache and, like, I don't know what it's called. A bunch. It's almost like a quilt with a bunch of colors. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And he walked on UCLA's campus, and he was like, "Are you offended by this?" And all these, woke UCLA students were like, "This is so awful. This is cultural appropriation." And then he went to like the downtown LA, like, Mexican quarter, and he wore it. And there were Mexican that were high-fiving him and thought he was so funny. Yeah.
Well,
they're-
it's like Latinx.
right. Well, exactly. Yes.
Latinos have contempt for that.
Yes, they do.
It's Anglo whites
I know.
who use it.
I would, if I could go back in time, I would advise people to not let because they took the Frito Bandito off the air, I think, in 1981. That was the start of wokeism. That was the start of opening the floodgates. I would say, no, you're canceled. The Frito Bandito is here to stay.
Exactly.
I love that guy. Okay, going back, we were talking about where or what time period we would go to. You were saying a tavern during the American Revolution. I was saying Hester Prynne, Scarlet Letter, Puritan, Massachusetts era. I have also thought a lot about, I wish that I could become invisible and go to some other countries and just walk the streets. Like, I would really love to go to Iran. Not as Julie, because I'd probably be thrown in jail immediately because I speak so poorly of Iran, with good reason. Terrible misogynistic government, and also I probably wouldn't wear a hijab, so they would be done with me. But I would love to be able to see what reality is really like in other countries, even in China. I would love to go and just observe.
Right, and know the language, obviously.
And know the language.
Yeah.
Imagine if you could go back in time, using Iran as an example, to life under the Shah and see what that was like, and then compare
Well,
it to today.
I was in Iran under the Shah.
No way.
Yeah, right
Wow.
before the revolution.
What was it like?
Well, I'll tell you in a moment. This will blow your mind. I flew from Tehran to Tel Aviv on El Al Airlines.
The fact that there was even a flight.
Of course.
And
He
on
was
Israeli-
completely pro-Israel. Iran
Right.
was pro-Israel, very pro-Israel. Among the many little things of my life that I no longer own, that's one of my top 5. That I don't have that airline ticket.
Oh my gosh,
Tehran,
I know.
Tel Aviv, Dennis Prager.
That would sell for
By the
a lot
way,
of money.
so needless to say, what did I do on the flight? I went to everyone who looked Persian and asked them, do you speak English? Virtually all did. Not necessarily well, but spoke. Why are you going to Israel?
Oh, good question.
A very good question.
What did they say?
Virtually everyone for medical treatment. And I remember thinking, does anybody in the world know this? How many people, how many Persian Muslims come to Israel to be treated? There's so many important things that are unreported.
Yes. Well, what was I? Now I'm doing it. You forgot earlier. I had this point about. Oh yes. So I did a show on Timeless about Mustafa Kemal Ataturk because this year, 2023, marks 100 years since the Republic of Turkey was founded by Ataturk after the Ottoman Empire collapsed. And it's really interesting to see how similar the Shah of Iran pre-1979 was to Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, where they both were very pro-Western, but they were also quite anti-Islam. They both had, under Turkey and Mustafa Kemal Ataturk's time and under Reza Shah in Iran, they sent soldiers into the streets to like tear off the hijabs that women were wearing. They actually banned hijabs and other forms of clothing, the fez, yes.
The Turkish hat.
But it's how many people even know that? How many people even know that Iran, what was it, over 40 or 50 years ago, was literally a photographic negative image of what it was today?
That's right.
How many people know about?
So when I was there, it was as if I was only in Tehran. That's important. Nevertheless, it was like being in a Western country.
I bet. How many people know that China 60 years ago was basically a backward agrarian peasant country, and now it is totally eating our lunch, as
Right.
Joe Biden would say, but he denies that
Well,
China's eating our
you could
lunch.
thank capitalism.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing else that has lifted people out of poverty. Nothing. But the people who are anti-capitalist don't care about lifting people from poverty, which is another issue.
And I have another point to go back to something earlier we were discussing, and I'm going to credit this one to Astrid, who is this lovely Danish woman who has her own radio show in Denmark. Dennis met her, and she's come to visit, but she left recently, sadly. You were talking about how it's a gift that we don't know what day we're going to die. And it's also a gift how we actually don't know if there's a God or if there's an afterlife. I think it makes the pursuit of trying to figure that out.
Well, it gives us free will.
Right.
When are you freer to drive? When the highway patrol or sheriff or police car is right next to you on the highway, or when you don't know whether there will be one? When are you free to drive as you want?
That's a really good analogy.
A perfect analogy.
Before
If you knew God were next to you, were watching knew it, not believed it, knew it, you would have much less freedom.
Okay, can I pause before I tell you my point? You are really good with coming up with like the
Yes,
one you talked about,
analogies.
body odor,
Yes.
you know, with the
Right.
fake it till you make it thing that you said, and then this one with God. How have you been able to do that?
I have no answer. That's the way I think. I think, what is it? Immediately I hear an idea and I picture, I think a lot in pictures, oddly enough. I picture an analogy.
I've been trying to do that, but it's hard.
Yeah, well,
It's hard to find
yeah.
it on the nose too.
Look, it's a very interesting thing about how do you know when you have a gift? You don't know it until you realize others can't do it. That's really what a gift is. If everybody could do it, it's not a gift.
Yep.
I mean, there are people who can play piano unbelievably well. It's a gift. They sit down at a piano and it comes to their fingers. So, by the way, it's just not for now, but it'd be a fun thing to discuss. Does everyone have a gift?
Oh, that's a great one.
It is a great one.
I'm gonna write that down.
And I have
think
thought,
so.
I do too. The question is, do you find it?
Isn't it sad that some people don't think everyone has a gift and they might have one and then won't?
Oh, you mean
find
about
it?
themselves?
Yes.
Yes, very sad.
I think you are more likely to realize / think that you have a gift if you're religious than if you're secular.
Really?
Yes, because secular individuals think that we are just kind of a bundle of materialist scientific and there's this weird like uniformity to human beings looking at the world that way. And I think if you have a religious worldview, you know that you're created in the image and likeness of God. You know that God's hand has touched you, to speak in a figurative way.
Well, that's sweet, but I don't know.
I think
you do. I don't
yes.
know.
I don't think secular people view human beings as preciously as we do.
Well, the vast majority of your Harvard fellow students are secular. I think a lot of them think they have gifts.
I think a lot of them.
They probably think they have gifts
Well,
that they don't even
there's
have.
a difference, actually. I think a lot of them think that they are gifted, but in a conventional way. Like they're very smart and they're athletic. I think people have certain gifts of consciousness or personality or connection with other people that some of my Harvard classmates may not be inclined to see in themselves or others because they're so focused on the conventional gifts of academics and sports and music. Anyway, back to Astrid. I just had to pause because you're so good at those analogies. So we were talking about how it's a gift that
You're so good at noting what is notable.
Well, thank you. Apropos, I have a show, Julie Noted. It's a segment of my timeless show.
There you go.
I'm just noting things. Okay, so it's a gift to not know if there's a God. It's a gift to not know when you're going to die. I was speaking with Astrid about some of the gifts that we have in reality that we don't appreciate. You were actually talking about one of them on your show the other day, and I think you were kind of joking. You were saying gravity. You were talking about how people are ungrateful, and then you said that that we should be grateful that we have gravity because life would be really hard. You know, we wouldn't be able to function if we didn't have it. And I know you're kind of saying it tongue in cheek, but it's true.
Totally true.
On MyPillow's 20-year anniversary with over 80 million MyPillows sold, Mike Lindell wants to thank each and every one of you by giving you the lowest price in history on their MyPillows. You will receive a queen-size MyPillow for $19.98. Regular price is $69.98, and it's just $10 more for a king size. You'll receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, My Slippers, and so much more. This is the time to try out some of their other great products that you've had your eye on. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio and podcast square and use the promo code Hartman to receive this amazing offer on the queen size MyPillow for $19.98 or call 1-800-566-6745. This comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep that you deserve. Go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Hartman or call 1-800-566-6745 today.
Totally true.
So, and so I was talking with Astrid about that, and then I was saying, we were having a separate discussion, and I said, it must be one of the worst things in the world to be at the end of your life and know that you're going to die and fear death. And we were saying it's such a shame that in the United States, we don't value our elders as much as we used to. We don't think we ought to call or visit our grandparents. We kind of throw away the elderly as people who don't matter. And we should really, honor and respect those people, especially because it must be so scary to realize that you're on the cusp of going somewhere else. And you know what Astrid said, and it's so true? She said, God has given us a weird gift, though, by having our constitution change, like our bodies change and actually decay, because that means at the end of your life, a lot of people are much less fearful of passing on.
Well, more ready to go.
Yes, more ready to go because they can't enjoy life the way that they used to.
That's right.
Anyway, I like this. I like the thought that you and I are talking about, and I talked about with Astrid, that we don't even consider gifts of reality as gifts. And we would be happier if we appreciated that God designed the world this way.
Yeah. The whole thing, I mean, all of life. This I didn't know in high school. I would say I didn't even know this at 40. Everything is a choice. The reason I learned it is because of the left. Because the left, marriage, for example. You've heard now the song, Love and Marriage Go Together.
You
like
introduced it to me.
Yes, I know that. This is from the 50s. So I grew up thinking you get married. Not you have a choice not to. You have a choice whom to, but not whether. It wasn't a choice. That's what you did. A man got married. A man took care of a family. It was definitional. It wasn't a choice. The left has made everything into a choice. Oh, you don't have to get married. You don't have to have children. There are no shoulds, the old thing. So everything is a choice. And here, by the way, I had many discussions with my Christian friends, and God knows how many Christian friends I have.
God does know.
Yes, he does. And this started when on my first radio show, Religion on the Line, because I had a rabbi, a priest, a minister, different ones each week for 10 years. So that's a lot of people to talk to about religion. So most of the Christians, most of the Catholic priests and the Protestant pastors, their position was that faith is a gift from the Holy Spirit, was the way they would often put it. And I never agreed with them. It is true that for some people it is a gift, that they don't have to work at it. I have to work at it. I've always had to work at it, and successfully. I truly believe in God. But I worked to believe, and I have scriptural bases about your working to come to faith. People, this is ironic that many religious people and many non-religious people agree. You either believe or you don't believe. Mm-hmm. The secular sort of believe that if you don't have a road to Damascus moment where God comes to you, as it were, mm-hmm. then that's it. I believe you choose. I always tell, whenever I meet an agnostic, you know what I say? Okay, you're an agnostic.
Oh, yeah.
Do you live as a believer or an atheist?
Oh.
You can't live as an agnostic. You either live as a believer or as an atheist.
That's like what you ask the atheist, do you hope you're wrong?
Yes. Exactly. Do you hope you're right or wrong?
Wow.
But every agnostic lives like an atheist.
How so?
Because they don't lead a religious life. Now, but let me put it this way. Every non-Jewish, I know Jewish agnostics who lead a religious life. Because Judaism is so behavioral. Where your mind is secondary to where your behavior is. This is a big controversy that I won't get into now, that I got into involuntarily.
I think people know the controversy
right.
by
Yes. But I have led a life of choices. I chose to get married. I chose to have children. I was so adamant about children that when my late wife could not conceive, I said, so let's adopt, which for me, it to this day is a non-issue, as you know. Blood Schmud is my view of blood. I don't care if I'm blood related to you. And I have so many proofs. We should definitely do. Did we not do a blood Schmud?
We talked about adoption and abandonment issues, but we haven't.
Oh no, but not blood Schmud. Good, because I can convince anybody.
Blood Schmud.
Yes, I can.
Right,
I know I can convince anybody that blood is less important than they think.
Can I pause for a moment? I agree with you. You have been one of the people. You have been the person who has convinced me. I don't know if I would say blood Schmud, but you've convinced me that blood certainly doesn't always.
I could convince you blood Schmud.
Well,
but I won't say
let me
why.
tell you how you may contradict yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
You just posted a magnificent fireside chat that I watched because I watch you a lot, where you talked about how it's a travesty that people don't speak to their parents.
Yes.
One of the 10 commandments, as you know, honor your father and mother. I think there's an element in that is that you ought to honor and respect the people who you are blood related to. Because really, that's what your father and mother are. They're people who you are blood related to. I guess not in the case of Aaron and you.
Right, but that's not insignificant.
It's not insignificant.
So does honor your father and mother apply to my adopted son?
Of course.
Okay.
But I'm saying one of the components of, I think, why God wants us to honor our father and mother is that we have a familial tie to them, in addition to the fact that they raised us.
Yes. Okay. So I don't have a proof that you're wrong, even though there's probably, it's probably true to a certain extent, but I have a sort of argument from the Bible itself, from the Torah itself.
Okay.
Well, it comes from the Torah and it's Jewish tradition. Who saved Moses when he was in a little tiny boat, so to speak? Right? When Pharaoh ordered
Are you
that
quizzing
the baby,
me?
Yeah, well, I'm not quizzing you. Because I was so
By the
sure
way,
you
it's
knew that the daughter
I
of
don't
Pharaoh.
know.
It's
Right.
okay.
I don't know Exodus as
Don't-
back in front as I
okay.
know Genesis.
Fine. I should never assume because I know the
No.
stuff by heart.
It's fine.
Yeah, but
Makes me better.
okay. You do believe that. It's to your credit.
Yeah.
So Pharaoh ordered all Hebrew baby boys drowned in the Nile. Moses is born, and his mother puts him in a little, I don't know what the English word is. The Hebrew word is the same as Noah's Ark. Interesting, which I make a point in my commentary. So he's put in, just like the world was saved with Noah's Ark, the Jews were saved with Moses' Ark as a baby. Mm-hmm. Basket. Yeah, basket. That's the way we say it in English. He's put in a little basket and floated on the Nile. Who saves him? Mm-hmm. The daughter of Pharaoh. And she knew, obviously it's a Hebrew, because why would he be floating on the Nile? His mother tried to save his life. Okay. Do you know that Jewish tradition, this even blew my mind, regards the daughter of Pharaoh as Moses' mother? That's mind-blowing.
That's cool.
Because she saved him and raised him.
That's very cool.
Very cool.
And I think I just, the reason why I wouldn't say blood schmud is that I don't think it's just that blood is trivial and doesn't matter. I think the Torah affirms and holds that, blood isn't the only connector, that, Moses' mother can be someone who he is not biologically related to. But I still think that God would want you to look out for your own. Let me give you an example from my own life. Gina's not my daughter. Gina's my sister. For those who don't know, I have a severely autistic older sister, and I am her conservator. So when my parents die, I basically inherit her as essentially my child. And I want to protect Gina. I love her. She adds a lot to my life. I adore her beyond words, and I will always look out for her. But I can't lie that one of the reasons why I will look out for her is that she's my sister. I wouldn't take it as a responsibility of mine to look out for another autistic girl if she weren't my sister.
Correct. So the only question is, if she were your sister because your parents adopted her.
Oh, I would do that too. Yes.
I know.
Oh,
okay.
I would.
That's all my point. Part of my blood schmud argument is I've asked people, so you're going to be stuck on an island for 6 months. Do you want to be with a friend or a relative?
Well, that's totally true.
Okay, so that's big.
Can I give you another example of the importance
We
of
would
blood?
die for our family, but we live for our friends.
That's a good
It's
one.
Pragerism.
That belongs on a t-shirt.
Exactly.
My mom has a napkin that says "Friends are God's way of apologizing for family" or something like that.
That is
Isn't
hilarious.
that funny? Okay, another example of the importance of blood: Judaism.
Yeah. What about
You
it?
need to promulgate. Keep. There are so few Jews, and the bloodline really matters.
Right.
And
but
you know,
Judaism also did the opposite. You could not convert to be an Egyptian. You could only convert to being a Jew in the ancient world. Then, of course, Christianity. But Christians were not a nation. Jews were a nation. You could convert to being a Jew, non-blood. Mm-hmm. The Messiah will come in both for the second coming, or the first indeed. But for Jews, the Messiah will come from a convert, Ruth. How's that?
My middle name.
There are no words. I
My
found
middle
your
name.
talking to Invisible Dennis more moving.
I can't believe that.
That's a very big deal that the Messiah will come. The Jewish belief that is the Messiah will come from a descendant of a convert. In my blood Schmud presentation, that is one of the proof texts, as it were, that I use, and the simple one. If you were stuck on an island, very few people would choose a relative. By the way,
So
that
true.
Yes, it is true, and because that's everyone has a role. Relatives have a role, and friends have a role. Mm-hmm. But remember, you choose friends, you don't choose relatives, so it makes perfect sense.
But
It's not an insult to your relatives.
Here's the thing, though. Society, and I totally agree with you. I would probably choose a friend over a relative if I were on a desert island. I think that non-blood ties are hugely important and essential, a la adoption. However, I don't think society would function if we didn't think that we had a certain allegiance
great
above
point.
others to our bloodline. Imagine if
That-
parents
yes, that's a good
imagine if
point.
parents thought, "Oh, well, it doesn't matter that they're my biological kids. I like that kid better. I'm going to
Right.
invest more in
So
that kid than my own."
For those for whom that is a need, I think that's, and I'm not saying that patronizingly. It's a good point to end. That's good. But we'll do a blood Schmud thing. It's an extremely interesting, and
It is.
I'm so pro-adoption.
Which so many people would not expect of you. I feel like you need to publicize that more. There are so many parts of your life that people
Yeah.
would not, they would think that, as I say, you are this nuclear family absolutist.
Right.
Because you're this conservative.
My wife and I are godparents to a gay couple's
That's
children.
another one. And also,
How many people know that? And the amazing thing is, even if they know it, though, it doesn't matter. See, the left judges thought more than behavior. That I treat gays as
yes,
no differently than anyone else
that is so right.
is unimportant, because I think marriage is between a man and a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, another final example I'll give is I was watching as I say, I watch you a lot. I was watching one of your YouTube videos about men and women, and I guess maybe you were saying something that pissed off some feminists. And someone wrote, "Prager must be married to a Stepford wife, docile." And I looked at that comment and I went, oh my gosh, they have no idea how wrong
The
they
stuff written about me out there
Well,
is
I mean,
so conjecture.
let me tell you, I have the honor of knowing Sue Prager. Sue Prager is not a Stepford wife, docile person. She'll tell you how she feels.
There are very few males that are as strong as she.
Oh, yeah.
There's no question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's correct.
But she's quite feminine.
That's right. She's perfect.
Dennis, before we go, what was Mr. Snuffleupagus' first name?
What was Mr. Snuffleupagus' first name? Sean asks.
You're
I
looking at
can't
the wrong
tell
girl.
you the important things that come through these earphones. He didn't have a first name.
Oh, he did.
He did?
Yes.
Dennis.
No.
Sean.
Zach, Rick,
Yerachmiel.
Alejo, Tony.
Beryl.
Aloysius.
Excuse me?
Aloysius?
His first name, Aloysius.
Aloysius Snuffleupagus? I love it. He's entering Prager territory. I love names.
Maybe I need to watch Sesame Street. I don't understand.
That is truly, if
Three
someone
quarters
were
of
to,
your
if
references.
somebody were to ask me, what is the most surprising thing about you that no one knows? I now have an answer. I know everything about Sesame Street.
And you watched it when you were in graduate school.
Every
Cuckoo.
day before leaving.
As you were writing your your
Yeah.
Why the Jews
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
So no, but
The
I do
9
that.
questions,
I
yeah.
I was reading the other night Modern Times by Paul Johnson, which is a really heavy book, and then I was like, I'm done. And then I turned on the Kardashians.
No,
I'm the same way.
No, you have to. Of course,
I
that's
go
exactly
from
right.
extremely highbrow to extremely lowbrow.
So that's worthy of its own discussion. Wait, the Kardashians is not Real Housewives. That's totally separate.
Yeah.
Okay, I've
I
never
love
seen.
that
I've never
too, though.
seen the Kardashians. I have seen Real Housewives, which the only reason that I'm surprised you love it, although I may have an explanation, and then we'll end, is I totally get, tune out, not intellectually elevated stuff. I totally get it. But I tuned in. So, for example, if you watched, what is it? When they're abandoned on an island, Survivor. If you watch Survivor, it makes perfect sense to me. But when I watched Real Housewives, I think once from my hotel room, and I thought, I can't endure this. I would have preferred to stare at the ceiling and think. The conversation was so vapid. So I have an explanation.
Okay.
How does one of the deepest human beings I know, Julie Hartman, enjoy the vapidness of Real Housewives? So I have an answer. Women, the female part of you.
Oh, yes.
Their discussions in some way fascinate you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Yep.
the answer.
That is the answer. There's a huge female component.
I
You're
can't
right.
imagine men watching Real Housewives.
What's a male TV show, like a trashy male thing
Oh,
that
that's
people would
interesting.
watch?
I'm not sure.
I'm sure
I
there
don't know
is
much
one.
TV. That's an interesting question.
Most people who watch Real Housewives
So
are
what?
women.
Sean watches trash. Sean, what? Pro wrestling.
Yeah, I can't relate. I can't relate to wanting to watch pro wrestling.
That's the best.
It's so
No.
gory. It's vile. I love
pro
watching
wrestling,
sports, but
okay.
ooh.
Pro wrestling is theater, and that's all you need to know. I don't think there's anything real except they are in good shape because they get bounced on the ground a lot.
Oh, that's for sure. By the way, okay, sorry, I know we keep having to end. Cauliflower ear. Do you know what that is?
It's if you get punched in the ear a lot. Boxers get that.
I never knew that was a thing. I saw some guy with it the other day.
Really?
He said he was a boxer. I didn't want to be rude, but he had it, and so I went home and I
Well,
googled boxer
Zach
ear.
on our staff of 14
Who's-
people
yeah.
who make this possible. He boxes.
I don't know if there's 14, but
It does Muay Thai.
we can go with that.
He does what?
Muay Thai. Kickboxing.
Kickboxing. Yes, exactly.
How can people reach me?
By going on Hinge.
Oh,
And
no. That's the surest way not to reach me.
It was a good one. I answered your question, and you don't like the answer.
Yeah, go to Hinge Los Angeles, and you'll see me.
Okay.
Anyway, Julie
Yeah.
at julie-hartman.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Julie R. Hartman. And you can follow Dennis now on Instagram, right, Dennis? We can follow you on Instagram. What's your Instagram? We went over this.
We did.
Yes, you have an Instagram. It's at the Dennis Prager.
Yes.
Because it's
at
the Dennis Prager.
The. Dennis is my middle name. My parents named me The.
Mark is a good middle name. Isn't it, Mark?
Yes, but why is it good?
It's not.
No,
It's not Gordon. Sorry
I
if
never
there's a
use
Gordon.
it. I never ever use it. It's not on any of my credit cards. It's not on my license.
Okay.
Only
On your Wikipedia.
no. Wikipedia did it.
That's how I know it.
Yeah.
No, Denmark. You're Denmark. That's what's cool about it.
Yes, my
When you went to
grandmother
Denmark-
called me Denmark.
Denmark.
Yes, that's
Okay.
what I always thought of Denmark. Why is DM
DM
Prager
Prager,
impressive?
like you can DM
Like
Prager.
E.M. Forster?
DM is direct message.
Oh yeah, you could
So
DM
you can
Prager.
you can
yeah.
DM Prager at the Dennis Prager on
Right.
Instagram.
So here's this. My initials are DP, Department of Police, Department of Parks, double play, displaced person.
I'm happy for you.
You probably are, but this is not the reason.
Good note to end on after trying to end for 7 minutes. Bye, everyone. We'll see you soon. You can catch Dennis and Julie every Monday on this channel. Shalom.